Hello everybody and welcome to today's tutorial. So I'm going to make a series of tutorials on a lot of the basics with Planet Coaster Console Edition, and I play on a PS4, so in terms of the workshop and different stuff, I see different things than the Xbox would see. But first thing I want to talk about is choosing your park and some good terrain paints and tools to choose. And ultimately it gets down to what are you trying to do with your park. So when I'm building parks, I'm trying to get more and more on the realism side and trying to be realistic with my parks. So if you go down to sandbox to start, you have the 7 different biomes with the custom one. If you choose any of these first 7, you are given just the basic terrain paint tools that apply to that specific region or that specific biome. Whereas if you choose custom, you can choose any of these 7 starting environments. But the key is that we can then choose what we want the ambience to be, as they're saying right there. So like, what do we want the ground to be? What do we want our rock to be, and so forth. Now I have to be kind of careful on this because it's got to blend properly. So I've played around with this some, and there's been a couple times where I've chosen what I want, and it looks really terrible once you open your park because it really doesn't blend stuff properly. So the key is, and let's choose a start environment first. From my experience, and you guys are welcome to chime in on this if you agree or disagree on this, I believe the alpine and the deciduous, actually I haven't played Arctic, so I can't really state on that one, but from my experience the alpine is the largest park. Deciduous seems to be pretty large as well. The tropical, desert, and city, and I don't really know too much about the grassland, but those 3 seem to have these smaller maps. The one thing I don't necessarily like about the tropical park is when you start, you have to have, you can't edit anything around the entrance. There's a specific way your entrance kind of has to look. And a lot of these have that. Desert's got it too. I just don't necessarily like the way the tropical one looks for my taste. But let's choose the deciduous park. Okay. So now we get to custom what we want, and so normally these 2 need to be some type of grass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to another grass, and it doesn't have to be from the deciduous park. It could be tropical. I've chosen this one before. It's not my favorite. Usually the best ones to do are from the alpine as well. And so I'm going to choose this ground too because this looks a little bit different than this one. Because if I had chosen this one, in my opinion, that kind of looks too similar. Okay. Now when we're looking at the steep, that's just talking about the rock. I'm going to keep these the same. You could, in theory, if you wanted to, change one of them to this desert look. Just know that that's going to change the visual look of your park when you open it compared to what it normally is, okay? You could choose an Arctic rock, tropical rock, that's up to you. I do kind of like some of these alpine rocks. Now, this is where we can really get detailed with it. I would keep these leaves because this is where you can really give yourself the opportunity to create that realism in your park. And by having leaves, what it allows you to do is it allows you to scatter leaves on the ground to give, obviously, the realistic look of trees dropping their leaves. So the first detail I would choose, though, is I would choose some kind of dead grass. And that's best found in the grassland area. Now, there are other options as well. That's kind of a grass that doesn't look great. I guess you could use a rock or something, but this one probably looks best because you're going to need to use this underneath your roller coasters. You could use this one too from the deciduous grass. I like using this one from the grassland, but underneath your roller coasters and stuff where grass just wouldn't grow as well as, areas that aren't having the wear and tear of a ride above it and so forth. Next thing I want to choose is I'm going to choose some kind of terrain paint in terms of being able to make concrete with this. So if you go down to city, you got these 4 different options. These last 2 are kind of more worn, which could be more realistic for backstage area. This one's concrete, this one's known as tarmac. I like choosing this one because of how dark it is, but what that'll allow you to do is allow you to paint your park to where you can kind of make a car park or a little backstage area without having to use the path, since the paths take up so much of the Oswald meter. Now, the last one's really up to you. This is kind of where you can get creative with it. You can get something with the desert. It's kind of what you want. I personally, there's one, I believe it's up here with the Arctic, is that right? Or Alpine, sorry. I like using this one right here that's kind of a little bit of a muddy grass look, but then it's got flowers in it. That's a good one to choose because it kind of gives that realistic look. You know, that one, that's grass, that's kind of dead grass. You can do that. You could choose one of these ones that has a little bit of sand. If you're going to have a lot of water in your park, you kind of put that around the edges to make it look realistic. There is one that's got a little bit of mud. This one right here, so that's kind of like a mud with a little bit of leaves in it. So I'm going to go back up to that first one I showed right here. So now we can start our park, and we'll see what it looks like once it opens. And so while we're waiting on this, as I said before, I plan on making a lot of different, just basic tutorial videos, nothing too terribly long, but just trying to go over some of the basics and some of the tricks that I've learned through my first couple months playing this game. Because if you're like me and you're new to the series and new to the game, didn't play on the PC, there's definitely a big learning curve. And so that's what I want to kind of look towards, is trying to help out with some of the basics and stuff like that. And also have some hints to give on the Oswald meter in terms of some things that you can do to kind of go past it a little bit and so forth. So now, as we see, here's our park. So there's a little bit of an area here where it got painted a little bit differently. But as you can see, the grass looks normal and we can build. And so, as I was saying before, one thing that I really like about, let's see real quick, about the terrain paint. So let's kind of test out some of the terrain paint to see what it looks like. So your rock, you know, that would look a little bit better if you have it a hill or something like that, right? So you see that rock compared to this rock. This one's a little bit more detailed in terms of a little more rough. And then you've got the different grasses. So that one's a little bit of a darker grass. This one here. So that's the grass that we see right now. The dry grass, so that's what you can kind of use underneath your rides. And also another thing too, you can turn down the intensity so it's not so crazy. So now you can just kind of tap it and it just shows up a little bit more, you know, just trying to make it more realistic. Because normally that's probably more what you would see instead of it like that. Then let's go up to leaves. So this one's kind of cool because it just puts leaves on the ground. So that's kind of cool when you're up close, and I mean, it's a realistic look, right? Trees drop leaves. Now this one's my favorite. I love the city tarmac because it just makes everything this dark color. And the reason why I like this so much is because the issue I have with the Oswald meter is, as you can see, I always have my percent up on the bottom just because I like to know where I'm at, is the fact that paths use up so much of that. So let's say I were to place this right here, you really can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference of where the path is compared to which is the terrain paint. So if you're wanting to make a car park, a parking lot, backstage areas, instead of having to use a lot of your percent for paths for those areas, just use this terrain paint, and I'll make a specific video going over that. But so as you can see, so this, let's look at the last one too. So terrain. Let's look at the last one. So the last one is this grass that has some flowers in it. So as you can see, it's a little bit of a muddy-ish grass, but it also has that flower look to it. So that can really help with building the realism in your park. So I hope this first tutorial was helpful, and you guys just need to be on the lookout for more. So if you would, hit that like or subscribe button. And I'd love to hear your guys' comments about which kind of park you guys like starting out on and which terrain paint you guys like using. And if anybody has any other hints or insights, you know, obviously feel free to comment. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.